It's Friday and time to look back at what happened at Queen's Park in Ontario politics this week. First of all, legislation, I want to talk about what bills the Ontario government is putting through the legislature. What's stalled? Affordable childcare agreement with the federal government and an agreement on OHIP funded eye exams. And lastly, I want to talk about pandemic measures for testing and vaccinations for young people. Legislation. The main pieces of legislation that the government is considering right now are Bill 43. This is the implementation of policies in the fall economic statement. The main controversy would be money to start planning for Highway 413. That's opposed by the opposition parties. It goes through the Greenbelt and in the long term will result in more sprawl and more dependence on driving. Bill 27, changes to working conditions, the right to disconnect from work, say on weekends, banning non-compete clauses, allowing delivery drivers to use washrooms at businesses where they drop off or deliver, licensing temp agencies to prevent the abuse of temporary workers, and refunding Workplace Safety Insurance Board surpluses to safe businesses. The last one is causing opposition parties to be wary. I've heard complaints from both employers who feel that WSIB pressures them to pay higher premia and employees who feel that WSIB makes them fight too hard to get the compensation. It's interesting that WSIB has this large surplus that the government is proposing to refund to safe businesses. Bill 37 is about more money for long-term care. The concern here would be that it's money for just more of the same thing instead of really reforming the system for elder care. And Bill 13, a so-called red tape reduction bill, it covers a lot of different areas and it's rather technical. One of them, for example, allows a city council to delegate more minor planning decisions to staff or subcommittees. And so these technical items will be sorted through at the committee stage. What is stalled in the Ontario government? First of all, the dispute between the government and optometrists over the rate at which optometrists are compensated for doing OHIP-covered eye exams. They still haven't reached an agreement, and people I've talked to are worried because of not getting timely eye exams to detect serious problems. There is still no agreement between the Ontario government and the federal government over affordable childcare. The federal government is providing something like $10 billion for the province to implement affordable childcare. Almost every other province has an agreement, and in the meantime, many parents are paying a lot of money for childcare. Ontario wants the fact that we have full-day kindergarten to be taken into account and that the province already pays for that, and assurances about long-term funding, that is after 5 years, that the federal funding will still be there and that there won't be a sudden charge to the Ontario budget. The federal government, on its part, says that Ontario hasn't come to them with a plan of how they would spend the $10 billion. It should be noted that the federal government minister is from Ontario and has little kids. It's Karina Gould from Burlington. And so I think she's well aware of the situation in Ontario. And lastly, pandemic measures. The number of COVID cases is not going down in the province. It goes up and down day to day, but it's not trending downwards. In Kingston, certainly not. It's not the safe haven it once was. Reopening in the province is paused now, but we are now going to have vaccinations for ages 5 to 11. That was just announced by the federal government that approval was given. And Dr. Kieran Moore believes that these vaccinations should start by the end of the month, and I'm hoping that the province has a distribution plan ready for the kids' vaccine. The province did announce that rapid antigen tests, a 5-pack, will be given to all students to take home for the holidays, and also to use during the holidays and also during the return to school in January. More controversial is the plan to do symptomatic testing of COVID in pharmacies. And people are rightly worried about being exposed to people with symptoms and potentially with COVID in pharmacies. But I think it depends all on the implementation, because I remember last year being not vaccinated, needing tests every week or every 2 weeks to be able to go into a retirement home to care for my aunt. And I knew, I could see that there were symptomatic people in line with me, and you can't, the way they had it set up, you couldn't help but overhear the occasional answer to a question, so that it was clear that there were symptomatic people in line with you to get tests. So I think it depends on implementation. I know, for example, that drive-through tests, where you have a little window in the side of the building, you do a drive-through. That's common in New York State, and so it's possible that something like that could be implemented. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and please join me next week as I look back at what happened at Queen's Park and Ontario politics.